Yo, 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 what's good, everybody? This is your boy T Swizzy, T Sway on the beat. Yes, sir. Who's on today? Who's online today? I figured I'd hop on for a couple minutes and chat with everybody. I kind of do lives at random. If anybody's in the house, make sure you say what's up. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. But I'm just gonna hop right into it because I'm pretty busy today. I gotta work on some tracks. So I actually wanted to talk about what it's like to create music when you're uninspired. Creating music while you're uninspired or while you're under pressure is something that I don't see a lot of people talk about that much. You know, it's hard to deny that there's things going on in life. We all have different things happening in our life. We have issues. Some people have health problems. Some people have family issues. Some people have stuff going on with their work and their career. Some people have, some people who watch me might even be in school. We all have different things going on. There's also financial stresses that people deal with. And then there's, deadlines of musical deadlines. There's sometimes we also just hit periods as musicians where we just don't feel inspired by life, or there's not anything really making us want to create something amazing, and as a musician, when you reach those points, it could be terrifying when when you want to make a song, but you're just not feeling the right vibe, or your mental state, or your emotional state is all over the place. And sometimes those are the hardest times to actually create music, to be honest. And pretty much I don't see, I'm trying to get the right angle here where the lighting's hitting right. Sometimes we just, we don't always have the right inspiration for making music. And sometimes there's those days where you're feeling inspired. You got a new piece of equipment. If you're like me, maybe you buy studio equipment and that inspires you. Every time I get a new piece of gear, that's an automatic source of inspiration, because there tends to be new presets, new type of sounds, new effects. And so that's kind of like an automatic inspiration. But many of us face times where there's just a lot of chaos going on in our life. And sometimes the music doesn't always come to you in the way that you want it to. And so, or maybe you try to make something and you're like, yeah, that's trash, or you're just not feeling it. And sometimes people will still put it out. Sometimes I put out stuff that I was in a certain place mentally, and I maybe wasn't that happy that day, but I still put it out anyways. And the funny thing about that is sometimes those are the tracks that people end up liking the most, which is weird. Some of the tracks that I've made where I wasn't really in the right state of mind ended up being, productions that people actually gravitated towards, that ended up getting millions of streams, or even a placement, which is surprising. So it's don't be afraid to make stuff even when you're not in the right state of mind, because some of that music could still take off. It could still go somewhere. You know what I mean? You just because you're not feeling in the mood doesn't mean the song won't turn out. Sometimes those emotions can translate and actually reach people musically, even if you're not in a good space. It's just like when people make a heartbreak song, there are probably a lot of people who are making a song about heartbreak might not really be loving what they're feeling, but they get that emotion out like therapy. And next thing you know, they got a top 10, top 20 hit record. They may have not been that happy when they recorded it or wrote it, but now that record's touching and reaching millions upon millions of, if not billions of people, especially with the streaming world. And you know, that's just the reality of making music. You're not always going to be in the mood when you make a song, or you're not always going to be feeling good or even happy when you make a song. But the end result should be that you should feel better after you make a song. It should be some kind of release that you get from creating or writing or recording. So you may not feel good when you start, but after you start to get in the groove and you're halfway through it, you might actually start feeling better. Or even just a sense of accomplishment, like, yeah, I did that. I put down something today and I got that out of my system. Whether it's a great song or whether it's a trash song, it doesn't matter. When you do something and take some kind of action towards something that you're passionate about, you still will tend to feel better afterwards. Like, wow, I actually did something today. I didn't waste my time. Or a lot of people I knew growing up would actually stop making music when they were depressed. Like something would happen, like a girl would break up with them, or just things were going on in their life that mess with their creativity. And when they chose not to do that creative thing, like writing a song, it never made them feel better. In fact, it usually would actually make them worse off, or they would be even more anxious or even more down. So I guess I'm kind of making this video for other musicians who are feeling uninspired, or they have to work under pressure, and they feel like, maybe you feel like the music's not ready yet, or maybe you feel like you don't have enough time to make your album or make that single or film that music video. But my argument is that I think as long as you try something, as long as you try to write a song, as long as you try to record a song, as long as you're looking for the right producers or the right beats online, or maybe you're producing the song, or as long as you're taking some kind of action to work on that creative endeavor, which is a song or a musical masterpiece, you're going to feel better that you've put in some kind of work. And especially if you get to complete that song, whether you're producer, songwriter, artist, or maybe you do everything like me. I produce. I also am an artist as well. Even though producer is my main thing, I feel a great sense of happiness after I make a song. There's a sense of fulfillment every time I create a track, whether it's something that's like amazing, or even if it's just a track that I'm not necessarily like in love with. I still have a sense of fulfillment that I put out a piece of art. I put together a piece of art, and I'm proud of myself of accomplishing that. So you get that sense of fulfillment when you create. And it's something that I believe a lot of people that are sold on the whole AI thing, I think that it's something that the AI people will never experience, is that when you get to the point where you don't want to actually put any effort into your creation, I believe that there's a lack of fulfillment in doing so. If things are too easy, there's a lack of fulfillment. There's something about putting in the hard work that that gives you a sense of fulfillment. You know what I mean? And I would argue that, because some of the people that are experimenting with the AI music, a lot of them also end up quitting that as well. There's still a lack of fulfillment for the people that do that. And I would argue that the people that actually put the work in probably I can just say from my own point of view, as I get a greater sense of fulfillment actually creating music. And that's not to down people that are experimenting with that type of stuff, but let's just be honest. When you actually put, your blood, sweat, and tears into the work, you're going to appreciate it more when you create that, it's just because you put that, you have so much invested. The more you have invested into something, the more you care about it. And that, that's just the reality of life, man. So the more you have invested, the more you care about something. So if anybody's checking me out, I see a couple watchers. Make sure you say what's up. Insert yourself into the chat room. I'm only going to be here for a few more minutes because I'm going to work on a track. But I do believe that we all face times where we feel uninspired. I do believe we face times where we feel a lack of passion. We all face times where, as musicians, where we're under pressure. And some days we're just plain out not feeling like making music. And it's like, what do you do on those days? Because especially if you're like me, or if you're somebody on a high level and music is your career, even if music isn't your career or you're trying to get into that field, every day where you don't follow up and work on that dream, you're losing out to people that are trying. And, so what I'm trying to say is that even if you're uninspired, it's not like, I don't think you should work every time you're uninspired. Obviously, there's certain times where you need to go clear your head, take a walk, or even maybe a vacation if you're fortunate enough. But to not work every time you don't feel, every time you feel a lack of inspiration and you decide to not try anything creative, I do think that's a mistake, because some of your greatest tracks can be made when you are kind of feeling low. Even when you feel that lack of inspiration, sometimes is when your greatest stuff can be made. And, there's plenty of people that's been down or been sad and made stuff. There's plenty of people that's made a hit song and they didn't really think they didn't think anything of it. And it ended up being their biggest record, and they didn't really think anything. They didn't think it was anything. They might have not even been in a particular great mood. It's just, they just laid something down. So don't let your lack of inspiration kill your drive to be creative. I believe you should still try. And if you do need a break, if you do need to take a chill, definitely do that. But don't use that break as an excuse to just keep stepping away from your creativity because you think you're just not feeling it. Because then that becomes a habit, and next thing you know, months turn into years turn into decades, and before you know it, you never worked on that dream. So, and this is more for the people that who are very talented, but maybe you've took way too long of a break and that you still have something to offer the music world. I do believe that, stepping away just because you have a lack of inspiration is not always a good thing. Sometimes you just need to throw yourself in the studio, or, on that notepad, or however you create, and just try something out just to see where it goes. Sometimes you just got to sit down and try to make something and see where it goes. And if it's whack, it's whack, but at least you tried. And if you still can't get the inspiration, try to, find things that inspire you. You know what I mean? What are the things that inspire you? If you're not inspired, you could try to get inspired by just focusing on things that inspire you. We all have things that inspire our creativity. And if you can find that thing that inspires you, just do that. Because you don't want to sit down too long as a creative person. You don't want to let those creative juices suffer too long. Again, we all need breaks, of course, but you don't want to let that creativity stay down too long. You want to eventually get back to it. Even if you're on a break or a vacation, or maybe you're stepping away from music for a little while, you still want to be able to get back to it, because you snooze, you lose. And in the music game, the more youthful you are, the better. So if you're somebody who's starting off as a musician and you're like in your late teens or early 20s, and you keep taking time off to kind of party and that kind of stuff, you'll definitely lose to the other musicians your age who are putting in the work. You know what I mean? Think about the big artists of today. Excuse me. A lot of the big artists today, they've been hot for years on end. Think about it. Chris Brown, think about Drake, um, people of that nature. And they've been doing it for a long time now. They've been in the game, uh, you know, 15, 20, 25 years. And let's say that they didn't have that fire to work on their creativity when they're younger, and they just put it off year by year by year. You would have never known those people. They never would have been household names. And I say that to the younger people that watch me, but there's people that are in between ages watching this channel. And I just want to say we only have so much time to really do the things that we dream about. We all have a limited time, and we don't have any control over how long that time is going to be necessarily. Each day is essentially a blessing. And so if you waste your time, you only have yourself to blame for that. So if you make excuses and you don't do the things that you say that are important to you, you only have yourself to blame in the end. So this is a call to action for people that have dreams, specifically music dreams, because this is what the chat's about. It's a call to action for you to don't sit on your gift. Even the Bible talks about the talents and how, the person that buried their talent lost their talent. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while since I've read that verse, but just in general, even if you're not religious, most people could relate to that saying of, whoever takes their talent and invests it doubles their talent. And if you just sit on that talent, the person that just sits on their talent and doesn't use it, their talent goes away and they have no talent now. So you got to make sure that you use your gift. And in this case, musically, I'm talking about staying creative. So make sure you stay, if you're an artist, make sure you stay writing, make sure you're trying to get into a studio, make sure you try to get a home studio if you can. And I know there's people out there that are having hard times. There's definitely people that don't even have a house. There's some musicians who don't have a place to stay. And I don't think that's an excuse for them either. If you're in a rough time, don't let that stop your creativity, because your creativity is the thing that could get you out of that hell that you're living in. It could be the thing that changes your life. You could be sitting on a song that could change you and your whole family's life right now. Throughout my time of making music, I've had these moments, these lottery ticket moments where things are really difficult. And then you just have one song that changes your whole situation. And next thing you know, you don't have to worry about money or food for a couple years, because a song, for me, I've had songs like that changed my life, you know what I mean? For a certain moment of time. Now I haven't had a $10 million song or anything like that. I believe maybe I do have that sitting. Maybe right now I have like a $10 million song. I just don't know it. That's why I'm going to continue to experiment. But I can say to you with confidence, me personally, I've already made a few records that were like little mini lottery tickets, little records that were just boom, that record was 200K. That one record was 100K. Another record was 100K. So, just to think, and then, on a bigger level, what if you're sitting on a record, like I said, that's worth 20 million, 30 million, hell, some people's made $100 million songs. There's people right now, there's musicians out there right now that have songs that have generated hundreds of millions. there's songs that's generated, like Michael Jackson records, that's generated billions. So do not take your creativity for granted. Creativity is absolutely valuable. It's unfortunate that people think that music isn't valuable. Go tell that, to the late great Quincy Jones, who he set up his whole family. His whole family is set because of his musical legacy. Rest in peace to Quincy Jones. Shout out to Quincy Jones. Absolute legend. I would recommend anybody watching this, if you're a musician, to familiarize yourself with the Quincy Jones biography and his story of his life. He has a truly inspiring life story. I'm talking about a literal rags to riches story of coming from absolute ruin. I believe he was originally from Chicago, South Side, and then he spent some time actually where I'm from, out in Washington State as well. And he had a hard time, man. He had a very difficult time doing his music and getting it off the ground. I'm talking about tragedies in his own family, tragedies on his way, trying to put his, music together and trying to form his brand. And he made it through, and not only did he make himself a name, he became what I consider pretty much the biggest music producer of all time. And he made Thriller, which is an album that still can't be topped. And he made Thriller in his 50s. So if you're not familiar with Quincy Jones, make sure you look up his life story on Netflix. I think Netflix might have a few documentaries on him, or wherever you got to get it, Amazon. Just make sure you watch his life story as a musician. It's truly inspiring, and it will make the people that don't feel like trying or trying to do something with their creativity, it will make you feel like, oh, okay, so maybe I have a little bit better than everybody else, What's good, my man? Estevian, I appreciate you, bro. Shout out to you, man. But yeah, I would just recommend anybody that's not familiar with Quincy Jones to make sure go check out his life story. It is absolutely inspiring. The setbacks and the hardships that he encountered throughout his life were on another level. I'm talking about everything from tragedy to health crisis to problems within his, with his parents. He overcame every single one of his setbacks. He overcame all of them, and he became what I consider to be the biggest music producer of all time, creating Thriller with Michael Jackson, producing movie scores. He went on to help create Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and several other successful ventures. And he set up his family for life. Yes, sir. Yeah. That Tevin Campbell. Yeah, he worked with Tevin Campbell. Tomorrow, absolutely. That's one of my favorite songs, to be honest. Excuse the sirens in the background. But yeah, so shout out to Quincy Jones, man. But if you feel low on inspiration, or you feel like you can't create, or you don't feel like creating, just think about all the things that Quincy Jones had to overcome. I mean, the man had brain surgery at one point, and that still didn't stop him. He still went on to create Thriller, it's just amazing. You know what I mean? So it's just amazing. So that's pretty much my message today. Is just for musicians to not let things get you down. Don't let anything stop you from being creative. Your creativity is your power. That's as musicians, your creativity is your power. And if you lock up that gift, you lose your power when you stop your creativity. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say to everyone out there who's a musician, is that you can't stop being creative. Yes, you can take breaks, But if you completely stop being creative for too long, that can affect your ability to go to the next level. You know what I mean? You could be, I always say this to every musician, you could be one record away from changing your life. You could be one record away from changing you and your family's life. You could be one record away from literally meeting your goals as a musician. And that's just the truth of it, man. Yes, sir. Estevian. Yes, sir, man. You say facts, brother. Yes, sir. Love this guy. Facts. I make music every day. Exactly, man. Because that's what it is, bro. It's just, that's your creativity is your power. And your creativity is what's going to elevate you to the next level. And, you know, I grew up with a lot of people that would make music here and there, but they would let other things get in the way. They would let, maybe a girl would break up with them. Maybe they lost their job, or maybe there's just family drama going on. Maybe they didn't have a lot of confidence. I knew a few people growing up that they lacked confidence in their abilities, and they just had fear. They had fear about failing, and they let that stop them from reaching their true potential. And you know, some of these people are friends of mine, and they're good people. They're great people. They're good people, but you know, it always pains me to see that they didn't reach their full potential with their creativity, because many of these people still have that creative side. Many of them still dabble with music, and a lot of them tend to actually hate their jobs. They tend to hate, you know, when I talk to some of these people, they tend to kind of hate what they do. And I say, man, why don't you get back into, you know, why don't you try to write some music again? And they go, yeah, but you know, they don't think that they could ever make something that would make it. I said, I'll tell them, I said, hey, you never know. You could be sitting on a record that could change your life. And a lot of times fear stops people from trying, you know. Estevian, you said, I've been writing songs since the age of 10, and you're now 36, still creating, never quit. That's what's up, brother. And I'm proud of you, man. And that's what it's all about, is just, you have to have a, you know, can't stop, won't stop, never quit mentality. You have to have the mentality that you're going to continue to use your creativity, and you're going to continue to bless the world with it. And that's your power. And I believe musicians, we need to understand the power of the music and being creative. And, you know, your creativity can change the world. Creativity changes the world. You know, think about, you know, the stuff that Michael Jackson did, and Prince, and, you know, all the greats, and, you know, the Al B. Sures, the Boyz II Men's, the Mariah Careys, the Phil Collins, if you will, the you know, all the great musicians of our time, their creativity changed their life. You know what I mean? You know, music also brings people together. Music also has the ability to heal the world, you know, so music is powerful, y'all. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. I want to shout out everybody that took the time to kick it on this live with me. Maybe you might watch the playback. You know, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And I got plenty of beats, you know, available at TonySwayMusic.com. You can get up to 20 for the price of one for all the leases. And that's it, y'all. So I appreciate you tuning in. And Estevian, I appreciate you kicking it here with me in the chat. Blessings to you, bro. And blessings to everybody watching. I appreciate y'all. If you support this channel, you could always drop a super chat, or simply just, you know, buy a beat, or buy some beats, or get a sound pack from my website, TonySwayMusic.com. This is your boy, Sway Versace, AKA Tony Sway, AKA Sway Valentino, in the building. And I appreciate everybody. I love you all. God bless. And remember, never give up. Don't quit on your dreams. And that's it. So I'll talk to you guys later. Peace. Jordan Lopez, he caught me at the end, bro. He said, "What's your favorite synth?" Aloha from Hawaii. Okay, well, my favorite synth, that's a difficult one. Right now, my favorite synth is the one that I just bought. My bad, You go by Sebastian's. I'm always just reading the YouTube title, but Sebastian, I appreciate you, brother. Blessings, fam, and I look forward to more songs with me and you, and hearing more production with the beats. Appreciate you. So, and Jordan Lopez, you said, what's your favorite synth? Right now, my favorite synth is the Magnolia analog synth by Frap Tools. They're a company in Italy. But my favorite synthesizer, thanks, bro. My favorite synthesizer is usually, it changes every like year. I have a new favorite synth, but so my current favorite synth is the Magnolia 8-voice analog synth, which is, you can kind of see it right there. But you know what I mean? So that's my favorite synth at the moment. But I'm going to tell you some of my other favorite synths. So the Prophet 6, that's one of my favorite synths. I also love the Korg Triton. That's one of my favorite, workstation keyboards slash synthesizer. The Triton is pretty much one of the best keyboards, if not the best keyboard of the 2000s, in my opinion. So many hits, the Neptune sound, all the people that they were producing. The Korg Triton is an absolute beast, bro. So yeah, Korg Triton, Prophet 6. What are some of the other ones I've experienced? Yeah, Korg Triton, Prophet 6. The Prophet 10 is another favorite of mine. Right now, I'm going to tell you the ones that I'm feeling the most over the last year, though. So the Astrolab actually made a very, very quality keyboard with the Astrolab stage keyboard. You can get it the full size version, and you can get the mini. I got the mini version so I can travel with it, which you can see. It's just right here. It's made by Arturia. And man, it's a phenomenal synthesizer. It pretty much is like a producer's dream. It has everything. It has great bass, has great key sounds, great Rhodes sounds, great electric piano, great piano sounds, great string sounds, great pads, and even has a nice plucking sounds, nice guitar sounds. The guitar sounds are not, I wouldn't say they're incredible, but they tend to fit really well in the mix. So if you know how to mix well, you can make the guitar sounds really pop. But overall, as a keyboard that has the best sounds, I would say the Astrolab is really blowing me away right now, because the price of it as well, it's not something that you have to spend $4,000 on. You can get the mini version for literally $699. And if you head to Perfect Circuit, I shop with Perfect Circuit in America, and they don't charge any sales tax from where I'm at. So I would recommend using their website if you're interested in that, or any keyboard really. So yeah, the Astrolab, the Magnolia analog synth, those are pretty much my top favorite keyboards right now. Last year, my favorite keyboard was the Moog Muse, which you can still see. I'm still using it. The Muse is pretty dope. But my favorite synthesizer kind of changes from year to year, bro, to be honest with you. So it's kind of like, the software on your computer. It's like you got to keep updating it every so many months, or that's kind of how I am with synthesizers. It's like I'll be crazy about a synthesizer for like 6 months, 7 months, and then after that, I'm kind of looking for the next sound, because I make so many different tracks. I'm trying to always change the melodies and stuff. But I appreciate that question. Hey, I appreciate everybody for watching. Thanks for tuning in the chat. Shout out to Sebastian. Shout out to Jordan Lopez Music. Appreciate you. And shout out to, even if you didn't say anything in the chat, shout out to anybody that's watching. Thank you for the likes on the video. And if you shared it, shout out to you. And if you dropped a super chat, shout out to you. And I appreciate everyone. And that's it. This is your boy, Tony Sway. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And that until next time, I'll see you soon. God bless. Peace. I'm Audi. Audi 5000.